Welcome back, everyone, to Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. Our first match of the second to last day of competition is Gallon versus Just Saiyan. This is a matchup that we, quite frankly, aren't surprised to see. These are two of the best performing players in the Americas over the past year. And if you go back to Saiyan, he's had just some of the most impressive Hearthstone results in the past 2.5 years, arguably top 3 in the world. So, it's very impressive to see Saiyan once more battling for playoffs. Not really a surprise there. But also, Gallon is a new challenger to the throne, and we want to see the new blood rise up. And one thing that is cool is that with Gallon being included here, that means 3 out of the 4 new players that joined us in Grandmasters over the past course of season and a half were in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and that's another kind of, I think, good indication that the system that Grandmasters is using this year is a good one, because it is giving players, the opportunity to move up like this. And here are the decks Gallon has brought today, or at least the ones that are not banned away. Warrior banned for both of these players, but it's going to be Quest Warlock, Highlander Hunter, and Demon Hunter for Gallon. In fact, both players with access to the same decks for this match.
That's right. Gallon is, a player that's been very outspoken about his own level of play. When he's making a mistake, he's one of the first people to correct it. He's also another big proponent that he thinks that Hearthstone players, even at Grandmaster level, still have lots of room for improvement. And I always admire that kind of strive for excellence in any kind of competitor, but especially in a game where it's very easy to blame outside factors that are not in your control.
Right.
Gallon first immediately blames himself. Looks like he does have a wrist brace on, so I hope everything's okay. But thankfully, it's not his playing hand, Doa.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, Gallon would probably on the injured list and couldn't play this weekend. Huh?
That's right. I suppose you can always swap to like a tablet or something like that if it gets too hard to use a mouse and keyboard.
Eye tracker software, which I believe No Hands Gamer uses. So
yeah. You can definitely use whatever it takes and still be like one of the best players out there.
That's right. Thank God for one-handed esports like Hearthstone.
There you go.
Now, let's go ahead and check in on this matchup here. We have Demon Hunter versus the Hunter to start things off. Highlander Hunter for Gallon, which is a deck that he actually has gone through several phases of. Gallon's, at one point talked about Highlander Hunters being like, this is, of course, going back to previous seasons. He wasn't sure if Highlander Hunter was even a very good deck, let alone bringing it to a tournament. And then he ended up bringing it and then doing well with it himself. So got a lot of highs and lows, and I think that's what shows why I appreciate Gallon, is that he's a player that has strong opinions and loosely held. And I think that's a really valuable asset, or rather attribute for a top-level Hearthstone player.
Yeah, and I think a lot of really competitive gamers will encounter something like a deck that is, feels very hard to them to excel with, and it makes you mad, but it kind of makes you excited too, because you're like, oh wow, I'm really bad at this. I can actually learn a lot from it. And so oftentimes it seems like in a lot of card games, the decks that you dislike the most end up being the decks that can teach you the most about being a good player.
That's right. Speaking of which, I do think Demon Hunter, for a lot of those beginning players, people are talking about how Demon Hunter is dominating the lower ranks because, as a new player, you get access to all these free cards. Demon Hunter cards, a lot of them are free. So,
yeah,
the baseline power is pretty high. But if you are a newer player, definitely pick up Demon Hunter. It's a very good class to just, one, win, but two, also just kind of teach you some important fundamentals about the game, because there's not a lot of card generation in Demon Hunter, believe it or not.
Yeah, there is and there isn't, right? You've got things like Skull of Gul'dan and Chaos Strike, but you're not going to be consistently generating a lot of new cards. It's not enough to let you kind of waste your resources, right? But I agree. I think Demon Hunter is a good one to pick up. I think any sort of mid-rangey kind of deck, Zoo Warlock is another one that jumps to mind as a good deck for kind of learning the basic Hearthstone fundamentals. It's going to be a Blazing Battle Mage for Gallon on his first turn, just saying over to his turn. Couple different options here.
Yeah, it was kind of wild that, there's been some discussion about the card generation in Hearthstone for quite some time now. Discover is one of the best mechanics to ever, grace digital card games. I think it's one of the best, most elegant way to introduce variants that's controlled in the pool, and also very fun to play and constantly introduce in unique ways.
Yeah.
But obviously, when things feel like they're getting out of control with, the other side of the spectrum is like a Yogg-Saron or a puzzle box of Yogg-Saron.
Right.
It's kind of interesting that for a while the meta is dominated by a card that doesn't generate a lot of cards randomly, unless they're really trying to look for it, like Volpera Scoundrel. So Demon Hunter was playing pretty straight up, and yet it was one of the most complained about classes, which I thought was pretty funny for a while. Because it's like, oh yeah, we don't like losing to decks that do the same thing every game, right?
Well, here's something new. Like it. But you know, it's interesting because Demon Hunter, I suppose, doesn't generate cards in the traditional sense of you know, drawing a ton all the time or you know, randomly generating them. But it does have token generation in like Satyr Overseer and things like that. It does have Volpera Scoundrel now, which is pretty auto-include with the deck. Skull of Gul'dan. So, you know, there's like other ways to come across cards than other decks have had in the past, which maybe makes it feel like it's still kind of generating the same amount of resources.
Well, there's definitely some balance, right? Part of it is, as Gallon coins out this Imprisoned Felmont to get some board presence. Part of it is to, like, Demon Hunter's too consistent, and then cards like Puzzle Box or Yakshman feels too chaotic.
Sure.
So we got to have some normalcy. It's not about one or the other. Somewhere in the middle, obviously.
Well, like any card game too has to have that balance of like, you know, good competitive cards and cards that are just plain fun, right? And Puzzle Box kind of like bridges the sort of like border between good and competitive and just for fun, you know. So that's kind of like a hybrid card. But I think any card game needs to have cards that let people just build silly fun decks that aren't necessarily meant to be competitive. So you need a bit of both for a good card game.
Murloc decks.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, there were times. You and I remember times when Murloc decks were legit.
Yeah, I mean Murlocs
at the moment
were even brought to a League of Grandmasters because of the 10 deck format, and they ended up being the central focus.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. Obviously,
Murloc Warlock was like a pretty dominant deck in the very early days of Hearthstone, even.
Oh yeah, I remember those times. Murloc Shaman was also pretty funny, but Murloc Paladin probably the king of all those Murloc decks.
Oh
back
yeah,
in the day.
For sure. In terms of overall strength. Well, looking at this game, couple different options for Gallon. Is there a world where you Zephrys here? What are you going to get if you Zephrys here? Because I feel like the hammer, yeah, you could play it, but you're not going to get a lot of value out of that first swing, and you're going to lose that durability. What do you think?
Yeah, so Zephrys will offer you a couple of different options. He'll always offer you 3, but he'll always offer you try to get different stuff unless it's lethal. In this case, I'm pretty sure Zephrys would offer you a Bloodseal Corsair to destroy the last charge of the weapon.
Makes sense.
It'll also offer you some tempo options, so maybe like a Voidwalker has been kind of really popular lately, or other cards like that. And then the last one would probably be something to set you up on the following turn. One thing that I'm actually pretty open to is the idea of playing Water Elemental against Demon Hunter. There's even some mage decks that were like playing not just Deep Freeze back when Demon Hunter, like a couple of patches ago when Demon Hunter was still just like at the top.
Right.
People were sometimes just playing straight up Water Elemental in their mage decks just to try to stop the attacks from the Demon Hunters. Or if they do, they would have to lose their turn. And then we found out that Frozen Shadow Weaver does the same thing, but more efficiently.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea though. I mean, if you take Frozen Shadow Weaver out of the equation to have a minion that's relatively high health that can freeze, you know, both big minions and the face.
Yeah, the issue is I don't think that you can guarantee that right now.
It's a little bit too slow.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it would be great if Gallon could tell his Zephrys what to do, and Zephrys was guaranteed to give him Water Elemental. I think that might have been considered the play. But for now, I think Gallon might just use his Zephrys as straight up removal. Like this next turn, he could probably use Zephrys to get Shadow Word Pain and just kill off the Battle Fiend. Although, there's an interesting thing that could happen. No, never mind. The weapon's too strong. It's not Desert Spirit. But there was this interesting dynamic where if the Bone True Brawler gains strength or gain attack, you could actually use Shadow Madness to...
Wouldn't be bad. Felma comes alive. Wow, yeah, it takes out the 2/4. That was basically the perfect hit.
Yeah.
For that Felma.
Yes.
So do you feel as much need to play the Zephrys now, or do you maybe go Fairy Dragon Hero Power in this case? Take out the 2/3 and keep the charge on your hammer too.
Oh, it's certainly interesting because Zephrys could be played in a couple different ways. You could still justify playing Zephrys just for tempo so you can keep the Felma on board.
True too.
Because the thing is, if you expect a Glavebound Adept next turn, you want to present the best board to fight against that. The problem with playing Fairy Dragon this turn also, by the way, is it's this Dragon activator for Rotnest Drake. So if he does anticipate Glavebound Adept on the following turn, he actually has to hold on to that Fairy Dragon to guarantee that battle cry.
It's a good point. So in a lot of cases, you have to weigh the value of keeping the durability on the weapon versus keeping the activator for Rottnest Drake. He's actually going to favor the weapon durability, which is more, I suppose, immediate board presence. But it will be the Zephyr's play too.
Right. This is a backstab as well, just to stop. Oh, Earth Elemental. All right. Okay.
All right. Hey, that's a great answer, actually. If you're not going to be playing the Rottnest Drake on 5 anymore, Earth Elemental, why not? You've got a turn to get rid of the Overload, and then Bran comes in on 7, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's actually, a couple of ways to justify the backstab just because he would stop the Gladebound Adept, but also I think Gallon realizes it wouldn't stop the Warglaive. So, either way, this is Saiyan having the pick of whatever he wants on 5, Gladebound or Warglaives. Warglaives looks good in terms of just cleaning up the board to make sure it doesn't run away with it. But Saiyan said he knows that Gallon picked a Zephyr's card they didn't play immediately, which means that it's most likely a play for the following turn.
Yeah.
And logically, we can deduce that probably means that it's Earth Elemental because Zephyr's usually offers you the best minion stat for stat at that mana slot.
I like it. It's a tough choice now for Just Saiyan. Either way, you're starting to face not insignificant amount of damage coming your way as well. Goes for the Warglaives. Because I suppose in the end of the day, it's better to take the damage once than more than once from minions. Or as few times as possible. So he is able to clear the board.
He knows that if his opponent does have Earth Elemental and he didn't clear off the board, he'd be very far behind. And like you said, he'd be taking multiple turns of that damage.
Yeah.
He picks up a dragon anyways, so Rottnest Drake is still not easily dealt with because even if Saiyan has that Gladebound Adept, he would have to attack into it. And the benefit of playing Rottnest Drake in this position is that you get to swing immediately with the weapon.
Yeah.
The downside is, if next turn you play Earth Elemental, you're overloaded and you can't play the Diamond Tamer Brand.
Yeah, that's the tricky part because you're going to have to deal with the overload at some point. And Dino Tamer Brand is so strong on turn 7, like that is a reason for the deck almost, is so that you can play Dino Tamer Brand on turn 7. So I think, you have to go with the Earth Elemental in this. You don't maybe have to 100% of the time, but it's probably going to be at Metamorphosis, though.
That's a
nice pickup.
Huge bailout here for Saiyan. Is it even a bailout, though? Because the thing is, Saiyan's still going to take some life damage.
Well, it might be, I suppose, in that it helps you direct a little bit more damage to face, or you can use it to handle the minion a little bit easier. It's still going to take a couple turns. You're still going to take, probably at least 7 from this, but at least you have a way of ending the threat at some point, right?
Yeah, I would say that, Gallon already sees that if he just hero powers and goes face, he's dealing enough damage for Dino Tamer Brand just to get there.
Yep.
I like this attack, too, because it's going to try and bypass I-beam situations, and I'm not sure if Saiyan can deal with the weapon. I don't think he can, but just in case.
Skull of Gul'dan is out there.
Okay.
But
so he would need to Skull into double I-beam, and I think Saiyan might end up just going for this Gladebound Adept play because it's still one of the best tempo options, but he needs to get really fortunate off the Skull.
Yeah, there's one I-beam. Okay.
Right. So, he has I-beam. He can play Twin Slice.
He's still
dead.
Still dead to Dino Tamer Hero Power, though, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And I agree with your Gladebound Adept idea earlier. In terms of just looking at what the board is and making your strongest board and just crossing your fingers that they don't have Dino Tamer Brand, that's fine. Maybe a little bit more risky to go for this, but he probably really wanted to pick up the I-beam for healing. It worked out,
desperate.
But
he's so desperate.
Yeah. We know that Dino Tamer Brand is coming in, and that's all he needs for Gallon to close out game number 1.
Yeah, and overall, the Highlander Hunter, even in some of its weakest matchups, as you saw with previous series, where the Demon Hunter just kind of ran over the Highlander Hunter, Highlander Hunter still has that curve, right? Like, what was really important there for Gallon was the ability to keep the early game checked, and then force Demon Hunter in a position where they have to trade their own life. Because the issue wasn't the fact that Hunter won the board. It was the fact that Demon Hunter used their own life as a resource, but then they couldn't keep that momentum up. Because if you actually look at the hand of Saiyan, he actually had a 2-turn lethal as well with Altruist. As long as he picked up a cheap card, he'd be able to Altruist, Twin Slice, play the Gladebound Adept, and probably push just enough for like around that range. So, Demon Hunter doesn't struggle to get the damage. Sometimes they just struggle to win the race.
It was going to be close. This was one of the things I really like about the Highlander Hunter deck is that it does have the ability to put so much pressure on the board in like the early part of the mid game, which is exactly when Demon Hunter decks kind of tend to come online. So, credit to justsaiyan for, really having a pretty intimate knowledge of when he needed to seize the initiative and seize the board to an extent that it would be pretty much impossible for Gallon to take it back, or vice versa, rather.
That's right. So Gallon versus Saiyan is off to a fiery start, and now Gallon's going to turn to his own tempo Demon Hunter to try and fight back. It is slightly different from some of the lists that you'll see. For example, he doesn't have as many proactive 2-drops and taunts, but he has the proactive 2-drops in the Sightless Watcher, which I always appreciate. I think Sightless Watcher is a really powerful effect, but I think because people don't get the immediate effects, or they may have seen some results where like, oh, I played Sightless Watcher and then I picked the wrong card.
Sure.
I feel like it's not as nearly as useful, but I think Sightless Watcher is a high skill card, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to use. What I like about it too is that it fills in that 2 slot in a Demon Hunter that oftentimes turn 2 can be a little bit awkward if you don't have Umberwing in hand, because then you're kind of like playing maybe a 1-drop, maybe a hero, maybe you're just hero powering on turn 2 a lot of times as well. So being able to have the Sightless Watcher in there gives you a body to put on the board, which is sometimes just what you need on turn 2 of a Demon Hunter.
That's right. So here we go. Turn 1, Gallon is set. Turn 2, he doesn't have anything. But Frozen Shadow Weaver is also proven to be really useful, so I like holding on to that.
Oh, and the mirror for sure, yeah.
Yes. So for Saiyan, there's an argument to be made that he shouldn't keep any of this. I think Satyr Overseer is valuable because it like puts the game on a specific railroad track that Gallon would have to answer, but he does end up throwing it back. And I generally agree with it because I think that Satyr Overseer is a lot more powerful when you have the support cards both in front and after it. Just by itself as a keep always feels somewhat sketchy to me. It feels like, oh, I really hope the rest of this hand pans out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a card that just requires other stuff to really work, so keeping it in isolation is risky. Gonna be the turn 1 Battle Fiend for Gallon, though, as you would imagine. So, is there a world where you actually Twin Slice to get rid of this? I've seen it a couple times, but it's such a... and I suppose you can think of it like a backstab, but it always seems like such a useful card for other times in the game that it hurts to use it early like that, even if it is to get a Battle Fiend off the board. What do you think?
I think it's great. I think Twin Slice is to be used to be bought for tempo is really undervalued, and at the same time overvalued. Like I think in this situation, using a Twin Slice is totally fine if Saiyan chooses to go for it. Largely because 1, he builds his own board, and 2, it's kind of like he goes first now.
Yeah.
The discussion has largely revolved around how should we be using the coin here. And I think if Saiyan wasn't holding Skull of Gul'dan, the answer would be a little bit more linear, because it'd be like, well, just get really far ahead on board. But with Twin Slice and Umberwing, that gives him important damage to help answer pretty much any threat that Gallon can play. And if Gallon can't develop anything, Saiyan's defensive play will pay off handsomely. And right now, Gallon, he kept 2 cards, which is a little scary for Saiyan, but he's already seen one of them, and now Gallon's going to show that he has nothing.
Yep, you get that turn 2, just use the hero power and attack that I mentioned earlier is a pretty common thing that ends up happening if your hand is a little bit clunky like Gallon's is. Keen Sun Fury is a draw. So how proactive are you if you're just Saiyan? You just drop you don't really need to do much more than drop the Umberwing, it seems like, but you can go farther. You can like coin out the Battle Mage or the Battle Fiend or something like that. So you're also kind of thinking about what your opponent's turn 3 is going to be. And it looks like the coin is going to be used. Yeah, so just saying, taking the initiative. Nothing on his opponent's side, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, so now Saiyan's going to go full charge ahead, maximum tempo, after seeing that Gallon has missed a beat, which is kind of crucial at this stage. Gallon picks up I-Beam. That's another really interesting choice here. It might look like beforehand he had to play Frozen Shadow Weaver, but now he doesn't have to.
Yeah, you could I-Beam the Battle Fiend, and you could attack a minion. You'd be able to keep your health at 30 at the end of it all, you know, if it was properly sequenced, but you just don't get anything out on the board. And I think that's what Gallon's kind of thinking about when he plays this Frozen Shadow Weaver. You do kind of prevent your opponent from attacking, and you say, all right, if you're going to get rid of this 4/3, you're going to more or less have to use your minions to do it. And that's kind of board clear in a way, I guess.
Unless his own minion gets I-Beam too, which would be the worst possible scenario for him. But, you know, one thing to consider is that, you know, the most important attacks you're trying to stop are usually on turn 5.
Yeah.
And so if he used I-Beam, he'd go to Frozen Shadow Weaver 4 and also Frozen Shadow Weaver on 5. But then the problem would be that he himself wouldn't be able to play things like Warglaze Azzinoth and Gladebound Adept. So I think he is very wisely trying to budget, not just for disruption, but also what can he do to threaten Saiyan. Picks up his Battle Fiend, which allows him to play the I-Beam immediately. So his you know, somewhat risky, but not really that risky, play has paid off here.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it is mostly 1/1s on the other side, which is, you know, it's a threat, but it's not as bad as it could be possibly. You can at least kind of maintain your life total, even have a little bit of a life lead at the end of your turn, and set up for clearing the rest of it with maybe Warglaves on 5. We'll see. Goes for the second Frozen Shadow Weaver instead.
Is it cold in the shadows?
All right.
Yeah.
You can clear the Battle Fiend and keep a 4/1 alive, so I suppose there's something. So, yeah.
Interesting that he's not prioritizing stopping the turn 5 attack. This is something that's definitely on my mind a lot when I play these mirrors. So I'm very curious to learn if this is the way you should be approaching it, or simply Gallon saying, my hand needs to explode with Warglaves and Gladebound, and I'm just going to prioritize that. Maybe it's a lot more simpler than we're making out to be.
Yeah, could just be an issue where it's like, I have to put the strongest stuff I've got out there right now because I'm getting overrun, which certainly seems to be the case, although now that Just Saiyan has been frozen for 2 turns in a row, that has kind of limited his ability to remove things and preserve his minions. Kane's Sun Fury is really, you know, the only card he can use this turn. Everything else requires him to be able to attack, which he can't. But if you play Kane's Sun Fury, then I feel like you probably have to trade in a lot of minions to protect him too, right?
Yeah, I think that on your mind, you are concerned about Warglaves of Azzinoth, and you think about like what maximizes your damage, and keeping Kane at just a 3/5 sounds like a priority to me, so I would probably trade some of these weaker minions in. I also think that you don't want to get blown out by an Altruist. So, Saiyan's gonna just go all face here? Interesting, okay.
It's really aggressive, but I guess he's saying, hey, if you're going to use the Glaives next turn, I'm going to make you, you know, suffer as much as I can for it in terms of putting you at an even lower life total when you're starting off clearing with the Glaives.
Right.
Huh.
So... Oh, so he's trying to use up more of Warglave's charges, the durability on the weapon.
Sure.
Like, force him to take comparable damage if he wants to preserve his 4/3. Interesting, okay. That's very clever too. Like in the form of like making Gallon take even longer to get his power turn set up. Because when your opponent plays the double Shadow Weaver before going into 5, it makes you feel like they have something good on 5. So like at that point, Gallon is sort of playing with some of his cards face up to Saiyan, just like I give you a range of what it could be. Now Saiyan's saying, I'm going to go face, and if you do have it, you have to either have the Twin Slice Gladebound Adept, or you have to have Warglaves, and you're going to take another 6 damage at least.
And when you look at the hand of Gallon, too, it's hard to not play the Warglaves here, even if it does feel a little bit worse than it did before. He's going to go for it, but you know, things like I-Beam are kind of locked between either one expensive card or, you know, a couple cards that adds up a little bit too high. Wow, 14. And he leaves Kane up. Oh.
Yeah, I think, well, he's probably going to go for the Gladebound Adept and I-Beam on the following turn so he can deal with Kane then. But it is a very defensive play. He's swinging with Warglaves into a 1/1. He traded a Frozen Shadow Weaver into a 1/1. Gallon already recognizes that he's very far behind. And I think it was as simple as missing his 2-drop that may have costed him.
Yeah.
A lot of HP.
Pretty easy choice for Just Saiyan to slam the Warglaives and just push more damage to face. His opponent is down to 8 now. And so we know you're going to get a little bit more health back from I-Beam here probably for Galen. But you're still going to theoretically take 3 before you get 3 from the I-Beam anyway, so you can finish off Kayn.
I think he probably will prioritize Glaive-Bound Adept being the damage, so that way he doesn't take that 3 life. So
you can just go face.
If he had a lot more HP, I think you could definitely afford to do that. If he was in, 18, I think you can argue for that. I think 8 is too few.
Yeah, just attack face to set off the Glaive-Bound Adept then.
Yeah, and kind of unfortunate that the I-Beam gives him fewer options because he does have Satyr Overseer with the Warglaives. That's one way you can actually set up 2-turn lethals.
Yeah.
You can just play Satyr Overseer, go really wide, and then threaten to kill your opponent. But
this looks like a skull turn.
Yeah, definitely.
The skull discounted, which is nice. All right.
Oh, jeez.
Glaive-Bound
Chaos Strike.
Yeah, finds the free Chaos Strike.
Yeah, looks very good to me. I don't see why not to use it in this position.
I guess you can get enough to... Well, let's see. How much damage are we looking at here? So 3 on the board, and then he's got the second slice of Chaos Strike, so that's another 3 right there. So 6 total. You're sitting at 21 health.
So the reason why I like using Chaos Strike here is because, well, 1, it's free, so you can get that damage in. 2, I actually think there's value in saving Second Slice, especially in that position in case you find Altruis and you need to go a little, get past some taunts. But
I was wondering if we were going to see this instead, where you just clear the minion, then, do 4 to face, use the rest of your weapon. You're still at 15 health. And, you were saying about saving the second slice for Altruis. I suppose saving the Chaos Strike is still an option, too. If you get Altruis off the top, then that means Chaos Slice is going to be your far right card. So you can still kind of use it in the same way you were describing with the second slice.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Maybe I'm just overthinking that as well. The last thing was that it potentially gave Saiyan an opportunity to just, straight up Metamorphosis as an out for lethal in case there was some dramatic swing on the board that he needed to do that. But overall, it's kind of like what you're saying now that I think about it. Chaos Strike functions very similarly to a second slice, but it's just even more powerful.
Right.
Because you get 2 attacks instead of 1.
So the I-Beam for Galen off the top. At 7 health, I think you're definitely worried about that play that you just described where, maybe Metamorphosis is in the hand of Just Saiyan or he draws it. Mm-hmm. So do you maybe, I know this is going to sound stupid, but do you maybe I-Beam your own minion for the health here?
Yes, I don't even think it's stupid at all. I think that's what Galen needs to do. The
question seems so wrong.
The question becomes how he fills out the rest of his mana, because if he does that, he can't actually play Satyr Overseer. So he's going to go ahead and I-Beam his buffed Scoundrel.
Yeah, it
Saiyan has just have lethal anyway. He's got 2 from Chaos Strike, 2 from another one, 1 through Hero Power, 4 from Adept, so he's 1 off right now. My count.
Let's see what the draw is. Bone Chewer Brawler doesn't add any immediate damage.
Chaos Strike could.
It definitely could.
But he is limited on mana. He doesn't actually have all the mana that he in the world to play this.
Yeah, Overseer. And now Just Saiyan in a little bit of a tricky spot where, now are you thinking about maybe using that Glaive-Bound Adept on the Battlefiend or something? Just to try to fight for the board a little bit more.
The Glaive-Bound is
Maybe
just
not.
so good to threaten a kill.
It is. I guess Bone Chewer Brawler gives you a way of, maybe setting up a decent Satyr board with getting 1 extra one from the attack, and then Bone Chewer Brawler protects it slightly.
I definitely like the Satyr Overseer. Adds a lot of good board tension. I like Taunt as well. I might even consider just going full defense in a sense. Just Bone Chewer Brawler, beaming Sidekick, the Taunt, and then hit the Battlefield. I'm considering that because I think from my position, I would want to save this burst in hand. Oh, but
Yeah, I was totally thinking about the Gladebound Adept still being 4 mana for some reason, but this is a great way to fit it in and get yourself a near guaranteed lethal
Right.
here.
Yeah, I think this play also makes a lot of sense. It
Yeah.
is still lethal as long as 2 of his minions survive. But if Gallon had like specifically the Altruist and he like ripped Skull of Gul'dan,
I grow impatient.
or maybe the other way, it could have been.
Sure.
This Kayn is interesting because I think in his mind he's still alive. Because Kayn Sun Fury and allows him just to ignore this taunt and pick the optimal traits.
Right. Still a lot of stuff you're facing on the other side.
Yeah.
And you're not clearing it super efficiently a lot of times too. Depending on the ordering he chooses here.
Wow.
So I think Gallon knows he's in trouble. That's for sure.
Well, he's playing these 2 cards regardless. I think he's just thinking about what he's doing. Like, he plays Kayn and then he hero powers to attack something, probably his opponent's face.
I see his weakness.
You kill off the Satyr Overseer with the Scoundrel, you kill off the Gladebound Adept with the other stuff, you go face with your... Pretty straightforward. Sam's 1 damage off lethal again, but he's got a lot of draws for it.
Right. Okay, Frozen Shadow Weaver. Let's see. Chaos Strike basically needs to find 1 more damage somewhere.
He's so close. He could actually straight up go for Skull of Gul'dan. But he would first, of course, want to get that guaranteed I-beam discount.
Right.
And so,
this makes the skull cheaper, at least, or it makes you reduce the cost anyway.
It's so likely.
Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't have it, right?
I guess not, because in order to add any more damage, you have to use your last mana
he
to
missed
play
lethal.
Altruist.
He missed lethal because he could actually use his own True Brawl to gain attack.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Gallon's like, uh-oh, you messing up?
It's one of those games where it's like, you're gonna win, but now it doesn't feel as good, does it?
Oh, it feels extra good when I win and I misplay. It feels extra good. I'm like,
Really?
I know my opponent's tilted. Yeah.
I feel
my
like
opponent's
it's
tilted.
a less honorable victory. I'm like, I didn't deserve that.
That's if you're trying to play a competition in a game like Hearthstone, you got to throw out the word deserve, because that's a very, very difficult subject to approach in a game of variance.
That is a fair point. Yeah.
Yes,
I'll give you that.
I think that, obviously I'm not trying to intentionally misplay, but when I misplay and win anyways, those victories feel extra sweet because I know how upset the other person is.
I mean, there's a psychological advantage, I suppose. If they're prone to tilt, maybe there's a little bit of an edge you gain there from that.
So every Grandmaster got it.
Pretty much every competitive gamer is prone to tilt at some point.
Yeah.
It's because we care.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the series is now tied. Winning the Demon Hunter Mirror is not nearly as impactful as what I think winning the Warlock Mirror is right now. My confidence in Warlock is starting to drop a lot, and I think that's largely because people are just getting better at playing around the heals, the range of damage, and generally like doing enough to make things uncomfortable. I think part of what made the Warlock so strong was that people just didn't truly understand the range of this deck, and now that they do, they can start narrowing in and make it so uncomfortable. Like, okay, I know that you can heal for 8 with a single Nether Breath, but now I can like try to make my board hard to clear, and I'm still threatening just enough. And I think that puts Warlock in a difficult position. So this is going to be a tougher matchup. But with that opening hand there, is it going to be a hard matchup? This looks like exactly the kind of opening hand you would want against Demon Hunter.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, you've got a way to contest the board. You've got a way to draw cards and ping some of those 1/1s, and then you've got a Crazed Netherwing. So as long as you draw another dragon, you've got a huge board clear right in the mid game when you want it. So yeah, this might just be a 4-keep for Just Saying. Either way, still a strong opening hand for Gallon.
Yeah, the thing about
pressure on, but
Crazed Netherwing is that it doesn't really address the turn 5 issue, which is weapons and Gladebound Adept. But you also need a dragon. But it's just such a good card to keep like Satyr Overseer boards in check.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta hold on to it, I think.
there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent them from making that turn 5 play, but at least you can put the state of the board in a position where it's, the best for you with a card like Crazed Netherwing. Battle Fiend early on, and there's that Sightless Watcher that we were talking about, which looks like it's going to be a pretty decent turn 2, unless he wants to just build on the Battle Fiend a bit more. Nothing wrong with that.
All right, so... Oh my gosh, a second quest.
Wow, Chaos Strike.
Hey, I got you.
These are some pretty explosive hands, and I know that
Yeah.
Sightless Watcher might not seem like one of the best cards to play, because you'd just rather have, like, the power cards now, but Sightless Watcher helps fix the way you draw, which, let's just say that if you could look at the top 3 cards of your turn, every single turn in Hearthstone, and rearrange them, it'd be a beyond broken mechanic. That's actually just one of the strongest mechanics you can do in card games, period.
Oh yeah, of course.
Just look at where you're going to draw and plan around it. So, Gallon might have the ability to, like, yes, this early game damage obviously just going to go away because of the heal and the defensive prowess of Warlock. But he is still going to potentially have good plays lined up here with the Sightless Watcher.
Well, we've talked in the past too about like how strong that, or how important rather, that turn 5 play is for Demon Hunter, and so being able to tailor your draw even a little bit more going into that can make the difference between finding exactly what you need and potentially not finding it.
These kinds of positions are a little bit tricky because you feel like you're incentivized to start going wider onto the board, like, oh, Sightless Watcher Battle Mage. It seems like fairly obvious in this position, but I think there's a lot of merit to playing the Sightless Watcher and hero powering. So that way, next turn you have a guaranteed curve. Obviously, he's going to reevaluate based off the Sightless Watcher pick, so he finds Volpera Scoundrel. He could justify playing the Battle Mage in this position now because he has a guaranteed filled mana curve with the Volpera Scoundrel hero power.
Right. That's one of the nice things about playing Demon Hunter is you don't often find yourself floating 1 mana just because of that 1 mana hero power. Dark Skies, though.
Wow.
It's pretty perfect for Just Saying.
Okay, well, I mean, they're getting really good at playing around it, but sometimes Warlocks just got the goods.
Yep.
Here's what makes it even worse. After Gallon plays his Volpera Scoundrel, or if he chooses not to, that's, whatever he chooses to do. Saiyan has the double Questing Explorer, and that in itself might be backbreaking because the Warlock now is ahead on board, and Demon Hunter, if they develop anything, will get traded into, and then Saiyan doesn't have to play Crazy Netherwing, or doesn't even have to have that dragon in hand.
Right. That's the thing is that as a Demon Hunter, you're the one who's supposed to be, presenting the threat on board. And so if you're the one having to fight back against it, that's a lot of resources that you really need to be doing damage to your opponent that you're going to have to just spend to just get back to even on the board. Double questing does seem strong here. He's going to go ahead and tap.
Of course it's
So playing it pretty conservatively so far, focusing on that quest. And there's a nice draw with the plot twist. That'll be handy. In a little bit, perhaps. Although he does have the activator now for Crazed Netherwing, so might end up with that as your turn 5, depending on what happens here with the Gallon.
Yeah, I like that top the more I think about it, because, Saiyan has all this HP he's preserved in the beginning, and as he does things like draw into his deck, if he, stumbles upon Arnasi Broodmother, he's actually kind of costing himself a lot of opportunity later on. So, leverage your hero power while you can, because later in the game, he might not get that luxury to. True. And also, he is drawing 1 card deeper, so by hero powering, he's going to have +1 card, so if he lands, like, Abyssal Summoner in the coming turns, it's going to be that much stronger. Second Dark Skies will be that much better, etc.
You'll be able to do that 1 more card with plot twists, so.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons. Turn 5. So, obviously, Netherwing does clear this, but... Oh, okay, so yeah. Just slams a Netherwing pretty quick. I was trying to think if there was maybe any other options, but it's another good tempo swing. Now he's the one with a 5/5 minion on the board, and Gallon has not much.
Right. And also, maybe one final case to make was that Saiyan probably anticipated needing to play the Netherwing anyways on 5. Sure. Playing the second Questing Explorer means that he kills both of them. That's a good point. That might be the most obvious reasonable that maybe Saiyan did opted to hold on to this Questing Explorer.
Yeah, not much sense in playing a couple 2/3s that just are immediately killed by you. So what's it gonna be? There's not a lot. There's not really anything that contests this Netherwing.
Demons.
Yeah, you haven't seen. You haven't. Oh, hold on. So I think if he chooses to go for the Umberwing here, it still sets up for a pretty good Warglaives. The question is, how does he utilize his Altruist in his hand? That's like the biggest question that's on my mind right now, which is,
Sure.
his opponent's at 19, and he has Warglaives with Altruist and a Skull of Gul'dan. I'm already starting to plan like a 4-turn lethal. And I think he just goes face and tries to find a way to get the Skull out of his hand with Outcast effects. And then when he does that, he'll be in a position to win the game.
Right. The tricky part is having that Warglaive sitting on the edge of the hand as well. That makes it a little bit harder to use Altruist, but I'm sure the Skull can give him some cheap stuff to use it a little bit later. Requesting Explorer for justsaiyan. Wow. Feels good to find a Mortal Coil here, too. Get rid of a 1/1.
Totally.
Get the draw.
Yeah, your opponent, your opponent showed double Chaos Strike. They picked Spectral Sight. They played Umbro Wing. It's like you understand that your opponents missed their power turns traditionally in this matchup, so just like capitalize while you can. And Saiyan going ahead and just plot twist. He's going to get that extra card. Again, that's a little bit of greed, which I like.
Yep. Well, he knows he's got a pretty good chance of drawing those Arnasi Broodmothers, just like the one we just saw. So you can get a little bit of health back. And I think he still has another Mortal Coil in the deck, so if he would have drawn that with 1 mana remaining, that would have been just awesome. Get 1 extra draw and completely clear the board.
Would have been nuts. Here's the thing, too. As the Warlock, you can see that Saiyan is prioritizing just like pushing damage himself. Sometimes you just get there anyways because you have burst damage, and your minions are relatively hard to deal with. Ooh, right. Gallon picks up the Twin Slice.
Okay. Interesting.
There's a couple different ways you can go about it. One, you can obviously use it for Altruist, but that doesn't feel great here to just float so much mana.
Yeah.
The second is that he could actually just use it for Skull of Gul'dan now.
That might be the play, because if you Altruist now, then you can't afford the Skull, so might as well. Yep, just going to go and use it to unlock the Skull.
Right.
Set up a big Altruist play later on. See what he draws. Ooh, 1 mana Cane. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Time grows short.
That is a lot of damage.
It's a lot of damage. He also could take it even slower.
The fires of vengeance burn bright.
He could also just go face with all this damage here. Because he has Altruist.
True.
Okay.
Sights are clear. Just a little bit. Wow, Abyssal Summoner. Feels like a pretty good draw for justsaiyan. Obviously, you're worried about Kane when it comes to throwing taunts down versus the Warlock, but what's the priority here? I think he's fairly close to completing his quest. So, is perhaps Abyssal Summoner coin plot twist to finish the quest for next turn a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think I like that play is because the rest of his hand's kind of meh, right?
Yeah.
Like, Crazed Netherwing doesn't have an activator, Zephyrs is inactive.
Yeah.
Obviously, Plot Twist and Coin aren't really doing much right now by themselves, so I'm open to that possibility.
I'm trying to think
of
what else.
Would be Sense Demons right now, and then Plot Twist. That's also something that I'm okay as well.
Yeah, he plays the Abyssal Summoner. I just wonder if that would be kind of too greedy. He's actually not going to plot twist. Saves the coin. Okay. I feel like he's at like 16 for the quest or something like that. He's probably pretty close.
I mean, he could finish the quest. I think he's just keeping the possibility of just like finding damage to win the game. I mean, look at his opponent at 17, and he's at 15, and he's got 14 showing. So
right,
yeah.
He draws an activator for Crazed Netherwing. There's a couple different options there.
So that card, Umberwing, is a little bit too expensive to play everything but the Warglaives with the Altruist this turn, because it would cost 9 mana. I think he might end up just setting up a Metamorphosis turn.
Kind of seems like the way to go now, because you're definitely not going to be killing the 7/7 with Altruist, so kind of have to employ the legendary spell here.
Right. And I think if I'm doing this, I'm going to try to get Warglaves out of my hand now.
Yeah, you've still got a mana to actually cast your hero power, so why not?
Totally. So now you can hit the Abyssal Summoner, and then you can go face. You're down to 13. Yes, your opponent, if they have Soulfire, Another Breath, you're dead. Gotta take some risks sometime.
Yep. At least you want to be threatening yourself. Oh, Broodmother for the draw. Galen is not happy about seeing that.
Right, so kind of what you're saying, Saiyan has the ability to finish the quest here. He finds Zephyrus, the Zephyrus activator.
Yeah, that's
that
what
was the
I was
reason
say.
why. Because he knew that the only card missing was Moarg Artificer, so Sense Demons allows him to have Zephyrus to be active. However, I don't think he has lethal just yet. He could tap into it, though, I think.
Well, if he... Let's see what he gets with Zephyrus, because, yeah, you're right. He could tap into something like a Nether Breath, some more damage.
Yeah, or Soulfire.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't work. But
Not
Zephyrus gives him 2 mana to play with. Gives him Wind Fury, gives him the ability to do a bunch of damage. Acidic Swamp Ooze is also just good, straight up.
Yeah, picks out to just remove the weapon and decides to just play it a little bit slower. So just a pretty calm, collected closeout by Just Saiyan here.
Well, I mean, is it a closeout, though? Oh, wow, that's such an expensive card.
I think, yeah, that's exactly it, right? I mean, you can play Altruist and then play from the left side of the hand, I guess.
Right.
But, and does that clear?
Demons.
I guess it would not, would it?
Demons.
It's still have to worry about that 5/5.
I mean, it would effectively clear if he just trades like Kane or his own health. I don't think he wants to, though, so...
Sure.
You can go ahead and buff Kane. Trade Kane in.
Yeah, that's true. Can survive the Netherwing that way. Zoom tight.
Thank you.
And still get 5 damage in with the Metamorphosis. So that is something.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good turn. It's just that, you know, is it good enough? Is Galen going to be able to get there, or is Galen dead?
8 HP. And if we look at what Just Saiyan has access to right now, he is also going to be at 8 HP. Crazed Netherwing is not active, but he does have Moarg, Rain of Fire.
Right, which does deal damage to himself.
Yep, it does. Do you
My
draw?
gosh. I think it might be a Moarg, Rain of Fire, and then just Taunt.
Yeah, that'll clear the board. You've still got the weapon on your opponent's side, but with only 1 card in hand, you probably pretty confident surviving the next turn now that Metamorphosis is done.
Right. Rain of Fire does 2 damage to everything because of it. Oh, he's just gonna go for the plot twist.
Wow. I love it.
Wow.
All right, going for the
That
heal.
is so brave.
And he can, if he doesn't draw the second Arnasi Broodmother, he can try to hero power into a free one, I guess.
Oh, totally.
And we'll see. Moarg.
Okay.
Okay. Well, you're at 11, so you're still feeling fairly safe in this situation, again, because you've already seen Metamorphosis, I suppose.
It's true. Its second Gleathon Adept wouldn't actually kill him because that would be 9 damage.
Right. Oh.
Oh, he's killing his own Moarg.
Wow. Okay. Doesn't want to give his opponent the chance to I-beam. Twin Slice. Let's see. So that's a total of 4 damage plus another 4. So he's got access to 8, I guess, but that's not enough.
It's so close.
Yeah. 2 off, it seems like.
Right. And so what this actually does is that it shuts off the possibility of any kind of like AoE. Like, he can't use Crazed Netherwing to kill. But he has Malygos Soulfire, so Saiyan has just narrowly survived. The Arnasi Broodmother heals were so clutch.
No kidding. So
clutch.
Rolling the dice a bit with the plot twist, but it works out. And just a really calm, collected, well-played game by Just Saiyan to take the lead in the series. Galen kind of shaking his head, but I think that was one of the best West Warlock games I've seen played yet.
There were definitely some, twists and turns that were like pretty tricky. I think I would have jammed the second questing explorer, but in hindsight, obviously Saiyan was right on that one.
Right.
I think I also probably would have tried to finish the quest, like that one turn where you could play the Abyssal Summoner and then coin plot twist to try to like either guarantee finish the quest or like get at that doorstep.
Right.
But Saiyan like really astutely observed that he was only one card away from finishing the requirements for Zephyrus, and therefore when he pulls Morik Artificer, gets the guaranteed, and also set up a possible lethal opportunity if he had another Breath or Soulfire, because he would be able to get that 5 extra damage from the Wind Fury. So really good tight play here from Saiyan on the corners that he looked at. A little bit of an unfortunate hand for Gallon because he had like no meaningful turn 5 play for a while. But he still almost pieced it together. And even despite all of that, Warlock had to have drawn Aranosi Broodmother.
Yeah.
Because if Saiyan didn't, he would have died that previous turn.
I think it's just another example of a Quest Warlock versus Demon Hunter game that goes down to the wire. It seems like every single one this weekend is. It's been a fun matchup to watch because it is, so consistently close like that. We're moving into what could be the final game in the series. If Just Saiyan gets the win with his Highlander Hunter, then he will move on. Gallon trying to tie things up with the Demon Hunter again.
All right, well, here we go into game number 4. If Saiyan wins this, he moves up. This is still just one of the initial matches, and therefore, as much as it's painful to lose for Gallon and Saiyan, they both have a second chance.
Right.
So, Gallon looks a little bit deflated. He did tell me that he was having a little bit of trouble focusing this week. There's obviously been a lot of ongoing events that has been, kind of weighing on people.
Understandable, sure.
Gallon especially told me that he's just been having a hard time this week focusing, and I hope that's not affecting him today as he goes into gameplay.
Yeah. Well, chance to tie it up here.
Job's done.
See if he can get the win with the Demon Hunter. No plays for Just Saiyan on his turn 1.
Yeah, opening hand here looks pretty good for the Demon Hunter because they have the curve. I would say that the opening hand from the Highlander Hunter, outside of having a 1-drop, is almost as good as it gets. Oh my gosh!
Wow. All right.
That's nasty.
That is so good.
There's a lot of merit to Zephyrus backstab, but I mean this Bone Trooper Brawler is so good here.
Yeah, I think anything that just sort of like puts a roadblock in front of what Demon Hunter is trying to do early in the game is pretty strong. You get a lot of time now with Hunter to establish this curve like we're talking about. So what's the turn 2 here? I suppose Umbra Wing does let him clear the minion, which is the key at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Important thing to attack the minion first so you don't end up running into more damage to your face yourself. So good sequencing there.
Desert Spear is pretty insane.
Yep.
It's very effective against Demon Hunter in particular because they thrive off 1 and 2 health minions. However, this Frozen Shadow Weaver is also kind of nutty.
Yeah. I mean, on curve, it shuts down a good amount of what Hunter does. I suppose you're still a little bit worried about a rush minion coming in, like a Griffin or something like that, to return it, but it is probably the biggest threat he's got this turn. Yeah, he seems to agree, and so the Frozen Shadow Weaver comes down. Ooh, interesting. Huh.
The Blowtorch Saboteur. It's a pretty specific tech against Demon Hunter in particular.
Yeah. And this would be kind of the time you play it, right? Most often in the early game where you are hero powering a lot as a Demon Hunter. I mean, you kind of do every turn, but it seems like it's a little bit more impactful sometimes in the early game when you're trying to gain that board dominance.
Yeah, I would say that it's most effective on turn 3/4, like right now in the early game. I will also say it's pretty effective when your opponent already has commit to Metamorphosis, so they can't really get easy activation off of it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
So right now, Saiyan, I think, might entertain the idea of playing Zephyrus for removal. Because he can't really deal with this Frozen Shadow Weaver otherwise.
Right. Good old Holy Smite.
Yeah, Holy
would
Smite
be the removal.
even more efficient than I was thinking Eviscerate, but I mean Holy Smite does the same thing.
Yeah. All right. So Galen with a response now. He's got Sightless Watcher. A couple of them. Altruist in the hand, but not able to use it for a little while.
Yeah, so Galen actually has a couple of really interesting plays. He could obviously just tempo the Kane Sun Fury, kill the Zephrys, and like move on with his life. He can Sightless Watcher and then immediately draw that card with the Chaos Strike.
That's a really good point, yeah.
So he can like basically curate the next card out of the 3 that is on top of his deck and draw it immediately, and then the following turn he can actually do something similar. He can lastly, of course, just take it really slow, Sightless Watcher, pass, try to adapt to what he was going to do, and then like say this next card in his deck is Skull of Gul'dan. Then he can Sightless Watcher, Hero Power, next turn coin Skull of Gul'dan and set up for an Altruist turn. There's a lot of possibilities that are with this hand.
I suppose you also have to think about what can you do to set up the Altruist as best as you can.
Right.
He's going to go with the Chaos
Coin
Strike.
Slice.
Wow.
But there's also Satyr Overseer, and he has the Metamorphosis. This is actually not an easy decision either.
Yeah. Okay, there's Zephrys at least. We'll see what he picked next time. Dino Tamer Brand in the hand. Always nice to see for Hunter. A couple turns before you can activate it.
Yeah, this is looking like a good Zixor opportunity. I actually don't want to play Scoundrel Ingenuity until Zixor has died. That just because it's such an impactful moment. Not only, of course, to get just the stat buff, but like then you have a guaranteed like turn 8 clock against your opponent. But he already had drawn Dino Tamer Brand, so that's a clock a turn faster.
Right. Still, Zixor does clear the minion on the board. And you can do something like just toss in a little bit more damage to the hero power, or you can establish like a Fairy Dragon, which is, maybe not the biggest threat because it's so easily attacked and removed by your opponent, but, it's another 3 damage, I guess.
Yeah, Saiyan isn't playing the Escape Mana Saber Beast, more Beast-heavy version. He's got Diving Griffin and Zixor, and it looks like that's it for his Beasts. So I'm finding fewer reasons for him to play Scavenger Ingenuity this turn.
Yeah.
Lotor Saboteur, oh my.
Wow.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that, and so... What am I missing here?
So, because you're looking at your opponent going into turn number 5, but I suppose they do have the coin anyway. So, this way it doesn't allow them to Warglaves and Hero Power, I suppose.
But Galen has a pretty good Altruist opportunity here. He can Altruist the Slices, coin Sightless Watcher.
Yeah.
And then he deals 4 damage for that, so he clears the board, and he does 6 because he actually gets attacked with a Twin Slice. And then he gets to plan his next card. So that's something I'm looking at.
It seems really good.
The alternative is just to set up Warglaves now, and then just use a single Twin Slice for the clear. And then set up for more damage.
Yeah.
It's more damage overall.
All right. Well, as we know, not a ton of healing in the Hunter deck, so any damage you end up doing is pretty permanent.
Right.
Most of the time.
And I mean, the merit to holding the Altruist is that Altruist gets stronger with each mana crystal you get, so it's totally valid to just hold on to it.
Wow, he's going to do it knowing that he's going to draw the Diving Griffin, but I guess going into these later turns, he's just going to use it. Okay.
Yeah, he wants to just kill him.
Yeah, I guess so.
Galen's like doing the cleanup thing again, which Demon Hunter doesn't want to do. That's why it's so important for them to stick a board early, is because if they had a minion on the board, they'd be able to Warglaves clear and then push damage. Right now, Galen's Warglaves clearing and then dying.
Right.
Wow, that's a big pickup.
Certainly could be. He's got a coin to pair with whatever happens. So if he's able to skull into an I-beam in the right position, that would be pretty nice. And he doesn't find it, so it's a little bit awkward. You can still clear, but you're going to take damage doing it. Which at 19 HP, you're starting to get a little bit worried about that.
Yeah. I mean, I-beam still could get off the top of his deck and he can coin for it.
Yeah, you can Chaos Strike into the possibility of drawing it.
And then he has the... I mean, with Warclaves and Metamorphosis, he actually doesn't need Altruist to end the game. He could just use it as a support to clear the board and then threaten to end. I can also see him just not playing anything here and just like passing.
Set up a big Altruist turn. Yeah, just decides to take out the 6-3. That is low health, but...
Oh,
wow.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, Dino Tamer on curve. You can see Gallon shaking his head a little bit. I mean, you know you're running that risk whenever you're going up against an empty board with a Quest Hunter on turn 7.
Right. And to be fair, this is what Gallon was doing to Saiyan earlier.
True enough,
well.
yeah. Yep. It's the purpose of the deck. Yeah.
Okay. So we have 8 mana this turn because we have the coin. You can play Altruist, that takes 4. And then everything else costs at least 2 mana besides this Battle Fiend. So
I suppose you could draw into another cheap spell with the Chaos Strike after you play the Battle Fiend.
yeah.
So there's definitely a possibility where he can clear this. You know, the four health minion, obviously Brand dies to Altruist, AoE, and then maybe if you draw the I-Beam, you can kill the dinosaur.
Yeah. I mean, it's just too much like meat.
Yeah.
Oh, Gallon's trying to guarantee what his next draw is. If he can get Twin Slice, that'd be huge. I-Beam is good.
Very good.
Like Chaos Strike and I-Beam, and then now this King Crush is dead? That's so insane.
Oh, he found it, yeah. Wow.
He
Play came
found
through
the
in the
line
end.
to clear.
Wow, that was like the big if, you know, if he finds the I-Beam, you can see Just
I
Saiyan.
mean, he's still
shocked.
dead, but that was really impressive.
Yeah. Is he just dead? Yeah, I guess he is just dead, isn't he? Yep, kill command. With the hero power will do it. The Locust gives him the 5 damage.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
That was a really impressive turn and really good planning. I wasn't sure if the Altruist hold would pay off, but if he was able to stabilize, he actually had the Metamorphosis and the Warglaive, so
Yeah.
potential like 2-turn, 3-turn lethal setup here from Gallon. Even though I know
think-
the moment does belong to Santa, I just want to call it out. I think that was a good play.
No, I think honestly Gallon played those games well. Like he was taking every, you know, sort of like opportunity that was given him to get closer to, you know, a lethal 1 or 2 turns away, and you know, just didn't work. Just Saying played great that series. That was such a very calm, measured series of Hearthstone played by Just Saying. It felt like when you're trying to like duel a master duelist and they're just parrying everything you throw at them. You know, that's like probably what it felt like from Gallon's perspective.
That's right. So Saiyan takes the first match in this group, but he will advance to play Bloody Face next, and then Gallon will stay alive by playing Zalay. A little apologies there for the small graphic mishap, but you can kind of extrapolate what's going to be happening here in the coming moments.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our next break. We're going to get set. Saiyan advances to play Bloody Face, and then once more we'll have Zalay play against Gallon for that first elimination match. Plenty more Hearthstone. We're just getting started, so don't go anywhere. I'll be back in just a few.
Hearthstone Grandmasters is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network. T-Mobile.